So first of all, I'll be taking your class for about 1.5 hours or 45 minutes. And after that, we shall go to the questionnaire section. And by that time, you'll ask your doubts and you shall try to make it clear. I think before you join this MEG class or MA English class, you have some ideas about English literature and how it is helpful to the society, how it is helpful to make a profession in that. So, dear students, when we talk about British poetry or poetry as a mode of literature, then let me start from the very beginning that what exactly we mean by literature. The literature is the mode of expression of our thoughts, of our ideas in different ways. Even if you are writing an application, or even if you are writing a small poem, or you are writing a short story, that is literature. And it is also said that literature is the mirror of society. It represents society truthfully as mirror reflects your image. So in that context, poetry is also one of the modes. As you have novel, we have prose, we have drama. Poetry is also one of the mode. But at the very beginning, yes, dear learners, that when you, because our MEG one deals with British poetry, so why not it is British poems? So there is a basic difference that poetry is the process to write a poem. So when we write a poem, we take a certain subject, we take a certain topic, and then we write a poem. But when we write it, we need some technicalities, and those technicalities, what we use or that comes in usage, that becomes poetry. So in a very simple word, I will tell you, poetry is the process or technique of writing poem. So poem can be the product and poetry can be the process. Now, so far as our academic component is concerned, because after all, we have to deposit our assignment or we have to take our exam at the end. So in that respect, it is very important to say that while discussing poetry with regard to poem, we should take three aspects. That is historical, because when a poet writes a poem, he is the product of his or her age. So when you find a poem written in today's society or a poem written 100 years back, then you will find the subject matter different. So that is why it is very important to know about the historical background of the age to which the poet belongs. Second thing is the biographical account of the poet, because each poet is basically a person, and the biography of those persons are different with regard to the age, with regard to their personal qualities, and all that. So, the biographical account of the poet is also an important point. Then comes third, the explication of the poem, or the analysis of the poem, or what to say simply, the critical appreciation of the poem with all these components. So, When we start book one today of British poetry, it is quite informative to know that the English literature, poetry or poem, is the oldest form of literature. And when English poem started, the first English poet was Caedmon during 617 AD, and he was a Safar. I think you understand what is Safar. Safar means the caretaker of the ship. So there was a tradition, Safar tradition, which is the origin of British poetry or English poetry. A book is written by Adam Bede, Ecclesiastical History of English People. I'm repeating it. Ecclesiastical History of English People. In that book, Bede has very clearly mentioned the origin of English poetry. A poet called William Langland, who wrote Pius the Plowman, is one of the old form of English poetry. This is just for your information that when we discuss English poetry, the origin of it, or you may say the beginning of it, it goes back to long past. But when you come to our discussion of today, then in book one, I think in the meantime, most of you, or almost all of you, who have got the sub copy of the study materials. And in book one that we are going to discuss today, that is, when a poet is writing a poem, then we must not forget that a poet is different from a common human being. Even though he is a human being, he is different from a common human being. He has a deeper, penetrative vision to look into the social, cultural, economic, political, religious aspects of the society much better than what we people do. And while observing this, he presents it in the form of a poem from 2 points of view, that is, objective and subjective. Subjective means something personal, personal observation. The biographical elements are incorporated into poetry. Objective means general. What is general? And those objective elements is not meant for one generation. That is meant for the whole generations to come. That is the reason for which today also we discuss the poems of Wordsworth, or we discuss the poem of Spenser, or we discuss the poem of Shakespeare, even after 200 years or 300 years later. And individual talent of the poet, the tradition of his time, that frames the role model, that frames the base to write a poem. So this is just for your information what the poetry is. So when your MEG 1, book 1 is concerned, that book has been categorically made into two parts. In the first part of the book, we have the subject of versification. In the second part, the beginning of British poetry by Geoffrey Chaucer. We shall go to the second part later on. But first of all, we should concentrate Now on versification. Dear learners, you are very well known that versification has come from the word verse. So what is verse in relation to poetry? As I have already told you that poetry is the skill or art, or you may say artifice of writing a poem. Poetry is the artifice, poem is the artifact or the product. Now, in writing that, after writing a poem, what is its function in the society as a mode of literature or as a form of literature? Because here comes the question of reading. So far as reading is concerned, we have two types of readings. That is extensive reading and intensive reading. Extensive reading means detail. Intensive reading means we can overlook it or leave some portions when we feel it is not very important for us. So in these both kinds of reading, when you read a poem, it is totally different from that of a prose, because usually, intellectually speaking, we should read a prose silently for a better understanding. But the case is just the reverse in reading a poem. Because when you read a poem, you should read it loudly. Because a poem is not meant for reading. A poem is meant for recitation. Poem is meant for recitation. So in the recitation, a number of technical aspects come, and that makes a poem verse. So verse means the recitation of a poem by applying its technical aspects. So versification means to discuss these technicalities, or in very simple words, it is the grammar of poetry. So let me repeat once again that versification means the grammar of poetry. So when we discuss British poetry, our topic is British poetry. So far as MEG1 is concerned, then let me uh, focus from the broader aspect to the microscopic part of it, component of it. Dear learners, suppose you have a piece of poem before you to recite. Then what you observe or what you see is the whole poem. So the whole poem is a product. And this poem is written with a particular process, that is poetry. And in that poem, you will find a number of stanzas. Okay, what we call paragraph in prose. So what is the stanza? Stanza is the identical units of the poem. And those identical units of the poem, they are composed with a definite number of lines. It may be composed of 2 lines, then we call it a couplet. It may be composed of 3 lines, then we call it a triplet. It may be composed of 4 lines, we call it a quatrain. It may be composed of 5 lines, we call it a pentameter. It may be composed of 6 lines, we call it hexameter. 7 lines, septameter, octameter. In that way, the poet has the free choice to compose his poem, to make his stanza by taking any number of lines. And those number of lines are fixed for all the stanzas. Usually, the poet cannot deviate this identical unity to maintain throughout the poem. So now, in relation to versification or the grammar of poetry, I will discuss certain terms which may be helpful for you and which is necessary for you also to give justice to your course. One is prosody. Prosody means the laws governing the structure of the verse. So far the structure of the verse is concerned, I have already explained. First of all comes the poem, then comes the stanza, and in that stanza you will find certain lines, and those lines are called technically meter. The lines of the stanza is called meter. So meter measures the rhythm of a line. In stanza, meter measures the rhythm of a line. Now, what is that rhythm? Rhythm is the sound effect of stress and unstressed syllables, or simply saying the up and down, the regularity of the sound which falls and rise throughout the line or throughout the meter. So, dear learners, first is the poem, the second is stanza. Inside the stanza, each line is called a meter. And from meter, we have a word matrix. Matrix is the study of meter. Now, how do we study our meter? Okay, so we can study our meter with foot and syllables. Now, if you have got the text, then let me take you to page number 31 of your MAG 1. If you've got the text, page number 31. Page number 31. Okay, in page number 31, you will find some lines are there, some stanzas are there, and in those stanzas, we have certain meters. Stanza, each line is a meter, and again in each line or each meter, you can find some foot. So the foot is the identical division of sound for maintaining the rhythm of a meter. So when we recite a poem, we need a rhythm, and to maintain that rhythm, we need foot. So foot can be identical throughout the line, and inside the foot, we find syllable. So what is that syllable? Let me explain you what is that syllable. Syllable is the production of vowel sound while uttering a word. So it has got nothing to do with the spelling. One small example let me give you. Suppose we have a word book, B-O-O-K, book. So in this word book, we have two vowels, B-O-O-K, book. But when we please make mute your microphones. Satyabrata Giri, please mute. Okay, thank you. So when you read the word book, then forget the spelling, then how many vowel sound come here? Only one. Suppose someone does not know the spelling of book, then he will write or she will write B-U-K, book. So U is only one sound. So this book is a monosyllabic word because there is only one syllable. Okay. So syllable is the production of vowel sound. Let me take to another word, that is, let us say that diameter. So when you come to the word diameter, then look at the word di. The spelling is di, but we don't pronounce it as d. We pronounce it as di. So it is producing two vowel sound. So the spelling may be di. The spelling may be having one vowel, but this is disyllabic because the production of vowel sound is, that is, two. So it is becoming disyllabic. So in that way, I think I give you some idea about syllable, that syllable is production of vowel sound. It doesn't depend on the spelling, rather it depends on the pronunciation or the utterance of the word in a perfect way as per the English dictionary or English vocabulary. Now, there is another term, scanning or scansion. Scansion. Scansion is the metrical scanning of a verse. How can you scan? How can you analyze the verse in its technical aspect? I shall discuss, don't get worried. I will discuss it, I will give you example and we shall do it. And in a stanza, again you will find rhyme. Rhyme is the sound agreement at the end of each line or each meter in a stanza. Suppose I have a stanza. In page number 31, I have a stanza. The stanza is with ravished ears, first line. Second line is the monarch hears. And third line is assumes the god. And fourth line is affects to nod. So the first line ends with S sound. Second line ends with S sound. So the S sound has an agreement. So this sound agreement, and the third line ends with D, the fourth line ends with D. So there is a sound agreement. So this sound agreement at the end of each line, at the end of each meter, this is called the rhyming. And a poem, the rhyming scheme in a particular stanza of a poem is usually regular or identical throughout the poem. That is the greatness of the poet. And one more is the rhythm. Rhythm is, as I have already told you, the regular and repeated pattern of syllables on a meter. The regular and repeated pattern of syllables in a meter. I have just discussed syllable, that it is the vowel sound while pronouncing a word or while uttering a word, and that syllable is again maintained very perfectly throughout the poem. We shall take the example of it, and my dear learners, I have already told you that all these technical aspects are available in page number 31 of your text that you have already got it. Okay, and what I discussed just now, that is prosody, meter, metric, scansion, rhyme, rhythm, versification, all those things are available to you in page number 30. Please note the pages so that when we will go through it, it will be helpful for you to understand. Okay, now let me make you once again clear or comfortable with the technicalities of a poem. That broadly speaking, the poem is a product and poetry is the procedure. Now, when we have a poem before us, we get some stanzas, and those stanzas are identical throughout the poem normally, and each stanza is composed of certain number of lines, and those lines are again identical throughout, and those lines are called meter. Okay, and each meter again has some foot. Foot means the unit, sound unit. The foot are made either of two syllables or three syllables. We shall discuss it. and that is again identical throughout the line or throughout the poem. In that code, we will find some syllabic patterns or syllables. And I have told you what is syllable. Syllable is the production of vowel sound while pronouncing or uttering the word. Now, again, when we talk of syllable, we have two types of syllables. One is stressed syllable, another is unstressed syllable. Stressed and unstressed syllable. So, what is that? Now, uh, when I say you a sentence that bring the book to me, bring the book to me, you mark how I am changing the meaning by giving stress to certain words. Suppose I say, bring the book to me. So now I stressfully say bring. That means I emphasize on the word bring. So the verb is here given importance. So if I say bring the book to me, that means there are so many things I am giving emphasis on the book. Bring the book to me, not the other things. The book is here important. Bring the book to me means don't take it to anyone else. Bring it to me. So while giving stress to certain word, while giving stress to certain syllable, we change the meaning of it. Now, suppose I say a word that is, let us say a word that is school. So we can't say school because school. So when you say school, that is emphasized. So you can't say school. It is wrong. You have to say school. The school is stressed always. So this is a stressed syllable. But when you say take it, take it. So when you say take, then this T sound, T or vowel sound, T, then ek. So K is emphasized. So T is on stressed syllable, ek is stressed syllable. So it is necessary to know that where we shall give emphasis and where we should not give emphasis. That is also one of the important technical aspect of syllable, that whether it will be stressed or whether it will be unstressed, because that is very essential
Is it, sir,
to
please excuse me. Would you explain it again on stress level?
unstressed syllable.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You see, again, syllable is the production of vowel sound. So while we uh, um, pronounce the word or make a word, then we usually give emphasis on it, and sometimes we don't give emphasis to it. So while we give emphasis to it, then it is called stress, means to say something emphatically. That is stressed. Unstressed means when you do not give emphasis to it. So as I was giving you the example of school, let me say another example, laptop. So when you say laptop, then laptop. So le, then top. So I am at the first le, that a sound, I am giving emphasis to it. So it is on stress level, laptop. So when I am giving to, or I am giving emphasis to it, so it is stress level, laptop. So while you utter, suppose you say appear, so you can't say appear or you can't say appear. You have to say appear. So a is a on stress syllable, pure o is a stress syllable, because the rule says that while giving while pronouncing a word, you have to follow the rules. If you have a good dictionary, you open any page and you will find there is a symbol how to pronounce the word. A good dictionary, you go to Oxford Dictionary, any dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, that there is a symbol how to pronounce a word, and that is the rule. So we cannot make the rule by ourselves. The rule is there. So when in a poem you get a line, you have to be very much careful that how the words are composed there, and those words will follow the rule of dictionary to pronounce it by giving stress or making it on stress. As I gave you the example, suppose tiger. So it is a tiger. So when I said tiger, so tie, that e sound with t, that is stressed, and g, Ga is unstressed. Tiger. Tiger. You can't say tiger. Can't say like that because that is not the rule. So tie is the stressed syllable. Ga is unstressed. I think I have made you clear in this, and you can ask it if you have any doubt further. Now, dear learners, when you talk of stress and unstressed syllables, then you have certain symbols. And in your page number 31, the symbols are very much given there. That for unstressed syllable, is a half U like symbol is there. Half U. The bottom part of U is the symbol for unstressed syllable. And there is a stroke like symbol for the stressed syllable. So I am repeating it. For the unstressed syllable, the bottom part of U is the symbol, and for the stressed, okay, and um, and um, now I think we have certain discussion regarding the structure of our stanza or our poem. So again, I'm repeating. Again, I'm repeating for you. That is, first comes stanza, then next comes meter, so whatever you have to ask, you please ask online. Okay, don't make a call. So please mute your microphones. It's creating disturbance. Okay. Any doubt? Is there any doubt?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, please. Okay,
No,
please
sir,
switch off your microphone.
but sir, till now we will not get our materials, story materials.
Okay, so please note down the page numbers. When you will get the study material, you will get it.
Okay.
Okay. Note down the page number. That is very important. Okay.
Sir, there is a question. Please briefly describe poem. Historical, biographical, and the application. Those are studied before.
We shall come to that while we shall discuss Chaucer. Now I am discussing versification because that's the first part. When we shall go to the second part, then I will come to that point. Okay. Now we shall keep that
Okay,
point.
sir, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, okay. Now I am coming to the foot. As I have told you, what is foot? Foot is the unit in the meter, and
Meter.
each foot is made by the unit by the combination of certain syllables. It may be, you see, there will be minimum 2 syllables in a foot or maximum 3 syllables in a foot. Okay, and how many types of syllables are there? Only 2. One is stressed, one is unstressed. Okay, please mute your microphone. Okay, someone is okay. Someone is unmuted. Please mute it. Okay. Now, suppose we have a foot consisting of 2 syllables. I mean, I am talking about and both these syllables are stressed. Both these syllables are stressed. Then we call it a spondy feet. The name of the feet is spondy. S-P-O-N-D-E-E, spondy. Spondy. Spondy means a foot having 2 words, both of them a foot which is having 2 syllables and both of them are unstressed. Then we call it pyrrhus. 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 So it is a disyllabic foot where both the syllables are unstressed, and spondy is a syllable is a foot where both the syllables are stressed. So these are 2 types of foot, and there are also other types of feet. So the first two are spondy and pyrrhus. The spondy is having both syllables stressed, and pyrrhus is having both syllables unstressed. Now I am discussing some other types of food which are having the combination of both stressed and unstressed syllables. The third one is anapest. A-N-A-P-A-E-S-T. Anapest. Anapest is a trisyllabic food. Trisyllabic food means there will be 3 syllables. And I'll give you the examples, don't worry. Okay. So in anapest, the first 2 syllables are unstressed and the third syllable is stressed. Means first 2 are unstressed and third one is stressed. Then next comes amphibrach. 3 syllables. Amphibrach. A-M-P-H-I-B-R-A-C-H. Amphibrach. And in amphibrach, you will find 3 syllables where the middle one is stressed and the first and third are unstressed. Then another one is trisyllabic word, that is dactyl. D-E-C-T-Y-L-E. Dactyl, in which the trisyllabic food, the first one is unstressed and the next 2 are stressed. Okay. And next comes trochee. Trochee. T-R-O-C-H-E-E. Trochee. It is a disyllabic word, disyllabic food. I mean, double syllables will be there. The first one is unstressed, and the first one is stressed, and the second one is in the trochee, the first one is stressed, the second one is unstressed. First one is stressed, second one is unstressed. Second one is unstressed. Second one is unstressed. And there is another food, that is iambic. And iambic is having double syllable. The first one is stressed. Please mute. Someone is unmuted. Will you please mute? Will you please mute? Okay, thank you. So the iambic food, which is unstressed, first one, second one is stressed. And dear learners, this is the most common food used in 90% of the poems written in English literature. The most common type of food is iambic. So you will get iambic food in most of the English poems in British literature, where we'll find it a double syllabic word, disyllabic food, unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So altogether we have that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of food. Spondy, having both stressed, pyrrhus, having both unstressed, anapest, 2 unstressed, 1 stressed, amphibrach, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, dactyl, stressed, unstressed, trochee, stressed, unstressed, and iambic, unstressed, stressed. And iambic, unstressed, stressed is the most common type of feet. So this is about the syllabic design so far as food is concerned. So usually a poet never prefers writing any meter by using spondy or pyrrhus. They are very, very, very rare because they are uncommon. But mostly speaking, iambic food and trochaic food are a little bit common. And iambic is the most common food used in maximum poems. So this is about the discussion regarding the design of a stanza, meter, foot, and syllable. Now, dear learners, I will take you to another side of a composition of stanzas. And as I have told you, that iambic is the most common type of meter used in maximum poems. Now, we shall discuss the stanza forms. Stanza forms. So, as I have told you earlier, that when we have two lines, two-line stanza, a stanza having only two lines or 2 meters, we call it meter, so far as the poem is concerned. So, the 2 meter stanza, we call it a couplet. Couplet is from the word couple. Couple means two. So from couple is couplet. So what is a couplet? Now I am discussing the stanza forms. Okay. So I'm starting from 2-line stanza to further and further. So a 2-line stanza. I mean a stanza having 2 meters. It is called a couplet. Okay. So again, these couplets are of 2 types. How it is 2 types? Because we have a closed couplet. So what is a closed couplet? Closed couplet expresses a complete thought and ends in a terminal punctuation. What is a complete thought? Suppose you have some proverb, or suppose you have some wise saying, or you have some sermon. Then you can start and end it with just 2 lines. So, I mean, it is not the stanza or part of a poem. It is an independent unit of having 2 lines. It is closed in itself. So it is a closed couplet. But when you take a poem, suppose you take a long poem having, let us say, 30 stanzas or 50 stanzas, and each stanza is composed of 2 lines, then they are not complete in themselves. They are a unit and a part of a long poem. And that type of couplet is called a distich. 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 A single couplet. A single couplet in isolation. A single couplet in isolation, and it is a part of the poem. So that is the difference between a closed. Hello. Please. Oh, please mute your microphone. Okay, thank you. So I discussed couplet and 2 types of couplet: closed couplet and distich. Then I will come to the next type of stanza form, what we call triplet. From tri, 3, this triplet. So what is triplet? Triplet is also called tercet. Tercet. Triplet or tercet. A 3-line stanza. 3-line stanza. Okay, but when you get the 3-line stanza, then one thing is it should be clear that all the 3 lines should end with similar sound. Suppose the first line ends with a sound called K, the second is K, and third is K. Suppose the first line ends with D, then second, third, all of them will be ending with D. I mean the sound agreement of all the 3 lines will be identical. So that will be a tercet. Tercet, tercet or triplet. But there is another kind of triplet. Another kind of triplet or 3-line stanza, which is called terza rima. Terza, terza, rhyma, terza rima. So terza rima.
Sir, which page?
It is page number 44. Page number 44, you can get it. Okay. In page number 44, you can get it. Terza rima. So terza rima is a triplet which is having 3 lines, but it is not necessary that all the lines will be ending with the similar sound. Okay. So when you see page number 44, you will find that suppose you see in page number 44, there is a line which is ending with flame, then a fame, and then a name. So it is M, M, M. So it is a that is tercet, because all the sounds are having the same. But when we talk about terza rima can be the first and third line are having the same sound, but the middle line will be having a different sound. The first and third line will be having the same sound agreement, but the middle line will be a different sound. That is why it is different from a tercet. So tercet and terza rima is different in the sense that tercet is having the same sound at the end of each line, and in terza rima, the middle line will be having a different sound. And this terza rima is popularly used by it is borrowed from Dante. Dante was an Italian poet, ancient Italian poet, and his Divine Comedy was composed of this terza rima, and it is borrowed by some of our English poets like P.B. Shelley in his poem Western. We shall discuss it while we shall discuss romantic poems. So now I have told you discussed couplet and triplet. Couplet two types, closed couplet, distich, and triplet two types, tercet and terza rima. Then I am coming to the stanza form, which is having 4 lines, 4-line stanza. So 4-line stanza is called a called a quatrain. It is called a quatrain. Quarter means 4, and in that quatrain form, you will get the sound agreement. And the first line agrees with the third line, and the second line agrees with the fourth line. I mean, there is sound agreement in alternative lines. First versus third, second versus fourth. We can call it A, B, B, A, B, A, B. I mean, if the first sound is A, third sound is A, second line sound is ending with B, then fourth line is ending with B. So it is A, B, A, B. Okay? Or sometimes it may so happen that it may be A, B, C, D, A, B, C, B. I mean, second and fourth line will agree, and first and third line may not agree. So whatever it may be, there will be at least one sound agreement. The other two may agree, may not agree. So that is about quatrain. Quatrain is the stanza form having 4 lines, and in the 4 lines you can find alternative sound agreement like A, B, A, B, or you can find A, B, C, B. Second, fourth may agree, first, third may not agree. Okay, so this type of stanza form, quatrain, is very common, usually in the elegy poems. What is an elegy poem? Elegy poem is the poem, elegiac poem, that is written on the death of somebody. A poem written on the death of somebody to mourn the death, to express the sorrow on the death of someone. That is called an elegy poem. You find such poems in our English literature, like an elegy written in the country churchyard by our famous English poet Thomas Gray, or you can find the English poem like In Memoriam, written by the poet Alfred Lord Tennyson. Okay, so these poems usually follow this quatrain. So dear learners, I have gave you the idea of couplet, 2-line stanza, triplet, 3-line stanza, and quatrain, 4-line stanza. Then let me come to the stanza having 5 lines. 5 lines. So the stanza having 5 lines are called the pentameter. Pentameter. Pentameters means having 5 lines. 5 lines stanza. And in the pentameter, you can get it of any form like A, B, A, B, C, or A, B, B, A, C, or in any form. And iambic pentameter is a very common form of stanza. It is used in most of the poems. So usually what happens in your examination, you will get a stanza for scansion or for versification. So you have to analyze the stanza, you have to find its meaning, you have to present its subject matter, and you have to analyze its stanza, its foot, its syllable, its rhythm, its rhyme, and all those things. The question setters prefer. So when you get a question, you first try to see whether the stanza is having 5 lines or not. And if you are so fortunate to get it 5 line stanza, then it is iambic pentameter. Most of the time it comes. And uh, 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 next I am coming to the stanza form, which is having that is 7 lines. 6 line stanza is not there. 7 line stanza, what we call iambic septameter. Septa means 7. Iambic septameter, and it is please mute it. Yes, am I not audible? Am I audible or not?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, then please switch off your microphone. Okay. Is it clear to you or not? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Then please switch off. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Then
Am I audible to you? Hello.
Yes, I am very much audible. Please say.
Sir, here is given heroic couplet, and that
I will
page
come.
number 33.
33. Heroic
Yes,
couplet.
sir. Yeah,
Yes,
you
I'm
mentioned.
I will come to that. Heroic couplet. Okay. Page number 33, na?
Yes, sir.
Page number 33, heroic couplet. Yes, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Heroic couplet. Okay. So, yeah, when we discuss iambic pentameter, I just discussing iambic pentameter with you. Okay. So in iambic pentameter, what you find, you'll be finding 2 types of iambic pentameter. 2 types of iambic pentameter. Okay. And in page number 33. So in that iambic pentameter, when the 5 lines, the 5 lines are not rhyming, let us say A, B, C, D, E, they don't rhyme, then we call it a blank verse. Iambic pentameter, when they do not rhyme, then we call it a blank verse. Okay. And when the iambic pentameter rhymes means, let us say A, B, C, or A, B, A, C. Okay. So when they rhyme, we call it a heroic couplet. Am I clear or not now? Am I clear? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yeah. So
Hello.
these are the 2 types of, yes. Is there any doubt? Is there any doubt?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. So are you clear about
Hello, sir.
iambic
Hello.
pentameter? Yes.
Hello. Sir,
Yes,
I'm
listening.
audible.
Yes, I'm
Sir,
audible.
again you said.
Sir,
again you
actually the
explained
heroic couplet
sir.
has only one couplet. Like if it's A, B, B, C, it
Hmm.
always has one couplet there in heroic
No.
couplet.
The name is heroic couplet, but it is a 5-line stanza. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Sir,
in
among the
5 line,
5 lines, there's always a couplet like if A, B, B, C or
yes,
A, B, C.
yes.
There's always 2 A's or 2 B's specifically. There always a
Uh-huh.
couplet in there, matching
Yes,
rhyme.
yes, matching line, and
Okay.
one is extra. And when it is not rhyming, A, B, C, D, E, then it is called a blank verse.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then the next one is, I'm coming to the stanza having 7 lines. Stanza having 7 lines. That is called iambic septameter. Because as I have told you, that iambic is the most common type of foot. Then in septameter or 7-line stanza also, iambic foot is preferred mostly. And this is called rhyme royal. Rhyme royal. RHYME, rhyme, ROYAL, rhyme royal. And it is used by our very popular poet Geoffrey Chaucer in his poem Troilus and Cressida. So in iambic septameter or rhyme royal, the the rhyming scheme is A B A B B C C. I mean, the first four lines will be A B A B, alternate rhyming. A B A B, and the next three lines will be B and C C. The last three line will be rhyming together. A B A B B C C, and this is called rhyme royal. You can get it a rhyme royal in rhyme royal. The example is very much available to you uh, in your page number rhyme. It is very much there. Let me see you.
Sir, page number 45.
45. Yes, it is there in 45. Rhyme royal. Yes, it is there in page number 45. Rhyme royal. Okay. Then next form of stanza we are coming is Ottava rhyma. Ottava rhyma. Ottava rhyma. OTTAVA Ottava rhyma. That is 8-line stanza. Ottava rhyma. It is introduced by Watt in 16th century, and it is ending with a couplet with a witty verbal comment always. So 8 lines poem, and it is very simple. A B A B A B. Three couplets will be A B A B A B, and the last two lines, I mean the concluding couplet will be CC, and the CC is always a witty comment on the first 6 lines. That is the Ottava rhyma. Ottava rhyma. Then one more is there, stanza form, that is called Spenserian stanza, named after our poet Edmund Spenser of the that is Renaissance age. Edmund Spenser, Spenserian stanza. It is composed of 9 lines. Nine lines in Spenser's poem, The Fairy Queen. It has been used there. So 9-line stanza, Spenserian stanza. It is followed by our romantic poets like John Keats in Eve of St. Agnes or P.B. Shelley in Adonis. So line stanza is usually used in the epic-like poems. I think you know epic-like poems. Epics are the heroic poems, usually bigger in the length in comparison to other kinds of poem containing a heroic story of ancient origin, and all those elements are there. We shall discuss it. So Spenserian stanza is the 9-line stanza, and the rhyming pattern is here: A B A B B C B C and C. A B A B B C B C and C. 9-line stanza. That is that one. And one more stanza is there. That is 6-line stanza. 6-line stanza, what we call iambic hexameter. And that iambic hexameter is also called Alexandrine. Similar as we call iambic septameter as rhyme royal, similarly iambic hexameter is called Alexandrine. It is there in page number 33. Alexandrine, iambic hexameter, Alexandrine. There is an example of Alexandrine also that we will be finding there. That the line is ending like the slain, seat, unknown, pray, ensure, like that. So we will be finding that this kind of a stanza having 6 lines, that is called iambic hexameter Alexandrine. So I think I have given you some of the stanza forms like quatrain, like tetrameter, that is couplet, or pentameter, hexameter, septameter, Ottava rhyma, Spenserian stanza. So finally, the next type of
Hello, sir.
yes. Yes.
I don't understand what is Spenserian stanza.
Okay. I'm repeating it.
Stanza, okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. Spenserian stanza is a stanza of 9 lines. Okay, and in that 9 lines, each line is containing iambic meters. Iambic meters, as I have told you, that on stressed syllable followed by stressed syllable. Like Ottava rhyma or like rhyme royal, Spenserian stanza is having 9 lines. And why it is called Spenserian stanza? Because it is named after the famous English poet Edmund Spenser. He has used this form, or used this stanza form in his poem, The Fairy Queen. And it is followed by our romantic poets like John Keats and Percy Bysshe Shelley, or Keats or Shelley. So this long type of stanza form, 9 lines means a bigger stanza. So it is usually preferred in writing epic poems. Epic, no, Mahakavya, epic means the like Ramayana, Mahabharata we have. Then English also some poems are there which are usually bigger in length, containing a heroic story of ancient origin, where some supernatural elements are there and some heroic story is there, and that type of saga or heroic stories are usually written in a longer type of stanza pattern, which is called Spenserian stanza. Line stanza. The stanza form is
Hello.
yes.
Hello,
Yes.
sir. I am audible.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, audible.
Sir, I want to say, please again explain what is blank verse.
Okay. Okay. After this Spenserian stanza, I'm coming to that. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
okay. So this Spenserian stanza has the rhyming form A B B C C. 9 lines. First line A, second line B, ending sound. I mean, first line and third line will have the sound agreement. Second and fourth line will have the same sound agreement. Again, second, fourth, fifth, and seventh will be the same sound B. And that is seventh and eighth will be CC, and 9 will be also CC. So let me repeat again the rhyming scheme. That is AB, BC, and C. So this is about Spenserian stanza. 9-line stanza, iambic foot, named after the famous English poet Edmund Spenser, followed by some other English poets like Keats and Shelley, usually used in the epic poems. Rhyming scheme is AB, BC, and C. This is about Spenserian stanza. Then I'm coming to the question asked by another learner, that is about the blank verse. The question was blank verse. So dear learners, as I have already told you that when you come to the 5-line stanza form, that is pentameter, iambic pentameter, then iambic pentameter has 2 divisions, 2 types of forms. So far as the rhyming pattern is concerned, they will contain iambic foot or they will retain iambic foot. The lines will be 5, but 2 types of situations will occur in that case. The first case is that the 5 lines, the 5 what we call meter, the 5 meters, they will end all in different sounds. I mean, 5 lines will be ending with 5 types of sounds. If first line is ending with A, second is B, third C, fourth D, and fifth E. I mean, all the lines are not having any agreement of sound at the end, and that is called a blank verse. Is that clear? That is called a blank verse. But if those 5 lines are, yes. Okay, that is called a blank verse. But if,
Sir, hello.
yes,
Sir, what type of question will come from this section?
the question will come that you will be provided with a stanza. Okay, and the question will be scan the stanza or make a prosody or versification of this stanza form. So a stanza will be given to you, and your answer will be, first of all, you have to write what type of stanza is it? Is it rhyme royal, or is it Spenserian stanza? Or first stanza form will be writing. Then you will be writing a rhyming scheme. Then what is the rhyming scheme? ABCD or AB, whatever is the rhyming. That is very easy to locate. Then the next thing will be that what type of foot is used in that stanza. So the foot is either trochaic or anapest or amphibrach or iambic. That you have to decide. And how it is there, you have to make the division of it, whether stressed or unstressed, unstressed or stressed, or stressed, unstressed or stressed. That thing you have to find out. And after that, you have to find the rhythm of the stanza. All those things have to be mentioned, and then you will be discussing the subject matter. So this will be the question. Scan the stanza. We will be making a total analysis of the stanza, dissection of the stanza, let us say, scanning of it.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes, audible.
Please explain, sir, Ottava Rima form.
Ottava Rima form. Okay. Ottava Rima is, Ottava means 8. Okay. Ottava Rima is a 8-line poem. 8-line poem. And in that Ottava Rima, again that iambic pentameter will be used. It is introduced by an English poet called Yatt, W-Y-A-T-T, Yatt, in 16th century. And its rhyming scheme will be, first 6 lines will be similar, A, B, A, B, A, B. And the next 7th and 8th lines will be having same sound, C, C. A, B, A, B, A, B, and C, C. So this is Ottava Rima, and usually the last 2 lines, they give a very witty comment or very intelligent comment on the first 6 lines. This is Ottava Rima. Okay. Then I'm coming to the final part of stanza form, what is called sonnet. I think you have been, most of you have been acquainted with sonnet because in schools and colleges, we have been taught so many sonnets. So let us say
Sir,
that,
sir, am I audible to you?
yes.
Sir, I want to, I can't, I can understand iambic septameter.
Iambic septameter.
Septameter.
Okay, it is very simple. Septa means 7. Okay, so 7-line stanza is septameter. 7 line, there will be 7 lines. The foot will be iambic. It is also called rhyme royal. When it is 8 lines, it is Ottava Rima. When it is 5 lines, it is iambic pentameter. When it is 6 lines, iambic hexameter. So when it is 7 lines, it is iambic septameter. So it is used by, it is also called rhyme royal because King James of England, he was very much using it. So because of in his name, we call it rhyme royal. Royal word is there because it was the favorite form by King James. So it is rhyme royal. And it was used by our first English poet, that is Geoffrey Chaucer, in his poem Troilus and Cressida. So that is iambic. Septa means 7 line. Septameter. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 septameter. Then I'm coming to the last form of stanza, that is called sonnet. Sonnet is a poem. It is a complete unit. It is not a part of anything. Sonnet is a complete, and Shakespeare has written so many sonnets. If you go to Shakespeare, you will find a number of sonnets has been written by him, and it is incorporated in even some of his plays, like King Lear, like Macbeth, like Merchant of Venice, and so many plays, so many sonnets are introduced. So let me say you in a very simple way that sonnet is basically a poem of 14 lines. Sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. Okay, so when you have 14 lines, then there are 2 stanzas. 14 lines have been divided into 2 parts, 8 plus 6. First part containing 8 lines is called octave. O-C-T-A-V-E, octave. The second part of it obviously contains 6 lines, and that is called sestet. S-C-S-T-E-T, sestet. You can get it there in your page number. Let me see. It is there available in your page number 45. You will get sonnet on page number 45. So let me repeat again that sonnet is a form of poem containing 14 lines, and the 14 lines have been again divided into 2 parts, 2 sections. The first part is octave, 8 lines, and the second part is sestet, containing 6 lines. So sonnet is a poem that was originally used by a Sicilian school of court poets in 13th century. So it was having its origin prior to that. It was in Italy by the famous Italian poet Petrarch. The famous Italian poet Petrarch has invented this stanza form, sonnet form. That a sonnet should be a poem. It should be having two sections, octave and sestet. And usually in the octave section, 8-line section, it has the subject of a problem. And that sestet section, 6-line section, it contains the solution of the problem. So the first 8 lines, the octave, it contained a problem. The second 6 lines, it contained a solution. So that is the subject part, subject matter. But so far as our structure is concerned, then in the octave part, the 8 lines part, we can find the rhyming pattern as ABBA, ABBA. The octave part, the rhyming scheme is ABBA, ABBA. First, fourth, fifth, and eighth will be same stanza form. Second, third, sixth, seventh will be same pattern. ABBA, ABBA. And in the sestet part, the rhyming scheme will be CDC, CDC. CDC, CDC. Or sometimes CDE, CDE also. And this stanza form, as I told you, I'm repeating it again, that in the octave section, the rhyming scheme will be ABBA, ABBA, 8 lines. In the sestet section, it is CDC, CDC, or CDE, CDE. And as because it is invented by or used by the Italian poet Petrarch, it is found by the Italian poet Petrarch, we call it Petrarchan sonnet. Okay, followed by the Sicilian school of court poets in 13th century Europe. Now, this Petrarchan model, this Petrarchan, we call it Petrarchan sonnet, 8 plus 6, 14. This Petrarchan model has been followed by or used by Shakespeare also. So in Shakespeare's sonnet,
Sir,
yes,
sir, am I audible to you?
yes,
Sir,
yes,
the sonnets are always iambic or it's trochaic?
yes,
Anapest?
iambic.
Always
When
iambic.
when I am not saying any fruit, then you take it iambic, because I
Okay.
have told you iambic is always the favorite form of fruit by the English poets. Okay, so all other forms are trochee. Trochee is rare, and all other forms are very rare. Okay. So in all the forms, iambic, in iambic, pentameter, septameter.
Network down.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Hello. Hello, sir. Hello. Hello, sir.
Petrarchan sonnet.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Am I audible to you?
Yes, audible.
Sir, sorry, sir. I am joining late. So, in which book this whatever I am sunset are mentioned in which book, sir?
Okay.
Hello.
So,
In which book?
It is mentioned in
these are-
MEG1. Hello. Hey, it is mentioned in
MEG1?
MEG1.
MEG1.
MEG1 and page number 46. So stay tuned. Okay.
Number 1, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, MEG1, page 46 is now going on.
Block number 1.
So we are discussing now.
Sir, block number 1, na?
Yes.
Block number 1.
Okay,
sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, 1. The sonnet. So as we discussed, the octave and sestet as a rhyming scheme I have just told you. and it is originated by the Italian poet Petrarch. We call it Petrarchan sonnet, Petrarch, Petrarchan sonnet, the Italian poet. Now the Petrarchan model, octave and sestet, 8 plus 6, it is again deviated by the English poet, that is Spenser, and we call it Spenserian sonnet. So now let me tell you how Spenserian sonnet is different from Petrarchan sonnet. So traditionally, when you speak or when you say sonnet, then the very picture comes into our mind is Petrarchan sonnet. Which is Petrarchan sonnet. That there is a poem containing 2 sections, 8 plus 6, octave plus sestet, and I have told you the stanza, the rhyming pattern. But there is a deviation from this Petrarchan sonnet that is called Spenserian sonnet. So what Spenser did, that Spenser took the model of sonnet form, that a poem of 14 lines, but he made a deviation of not making 2 parts of octave and sestet. Rather, he made 4 parts of the 14 lines. In those 4 parts, what did he do? He used 3 quatrains followed by a couplet. 3 quatrains followed by a couplet. Quatrain number 1, 4 lines. Quatrain number 2, 4 lines. Quatrain number 3, 4 lines. So 4 into 3, 12 lines. Then the last stanza is a couplet having 2 lines. Okay. So 12. So that was 8 plus 6. Now it is 12 plus 2, and 12 is 4 into 3. 4 lines, 1 stanza. Second stanza 4 lines. Third stanza 4 lines, and fourth stanza is 2 lines. So 3 quatrains followed by a couplet, and he manipulated the quatrain with the rhyming scheme ABAB, BCBC, CDCD. There is a continuity, there is a linkage. You see, the first quatrain is having the rhyming scheme ABAB, second quatrain is BCBC, third quatrain is CDCD, and the next couplet is EE. So what we find in Petrarchan sonnet, that the 8 lines contain the problem and 6 lines are necessary to solve the problem. But Spenser, as a Renaissance poet, he solved the problem with only 2 lines. So the first 12 lines, first 3 quatrains, he narrated the problem and he solved the problem with very wittily in the next 2 lines, that is the couplet. So that is the basic difference between a Petrarchan sonnet and a Spenserian sonnet. And our famous English poet or dramatist Shakespeare followed the Spenserian sonnet. So we also call it Shakespearean model. So Shakespearean model or Spenserian model are almost the same model, which is different from Petrarchan model. So we have 2 types of sonnets: Petrarchan sonnets, and second is Spenserian or Shakespearean sonnet. Petrarchan sonnet is 8 plus 6, since Spenserian sonnet or Shakespearean sonnet is 12 plus 2. 12 is again 4 into 3. 3 quatrains followed by a couplet. And the 3 quatrains are having the rhyming scheme ABAB, BCBC, CDCD, and the couplet is EE. So this is about the stanza form, different stanza. Yes.
Sir, are those Shakespearean sonnet and Spenserian sonnet are equal, same?
Yes, they are equal in structure, but thematically they are different. And how they are different thematically, we shall discuss while shall discuss Spenser. The theme is different. All of them are love sonnets, but the treatment of love by Spenser and treatment of love by Shakespeare is different, because they have a different views on the theme of love. Love sonnets, but theme is different. Structure is same, equal.
Hello, sir. There are
rhyming patterns are also different.
Rhyming pattern is not different. Rhyming pattern in Shakespearean sonnet, rhyming pattern is same. That is, as I told you, ABAB, BCBC, CDCD, followed by EE. And yes, rhyming. Yes, Shakespeare has some deviation in the rhyming pattern also. Like when you find Spenserian sonnet in continuity ABAB, BCBC, CDCD. In case of Shakespeare, you may find ABAB, CDCD, EF, EF. That is the difference. Rhyming
Hello,
pattern.
sir.
Shakespeare.
Sir,
Yes.
am I audible? Sir,
Yes,
there's a
audible.
question in the assignment section, like the difference between sonnets 19 and sonnet 23.
Sonnet 99.
Sonnets 19 and sonnets 23.
Yeah.
99
There's a
sonnets.
sonnets 19, 19 and sonnet 23. Difference. Sir,
That is
you
a-
will read it. Okay.
That is Shakespeare's sonnet. Sonnet.
Okay,
Shakespeare has
sir.
written.
The names like 19, 23 or 34, they are given on the basis of the lines they containing or the stanzas they
No.
containing. Okay.
Shakespeare has written 36 sonnets. Okay.
Okay.
More than that. So they are just a number. So when if you in the net, if you find Shakespeare sonnet number 19, you will find there will be a title of the poem and the poem is there. It is just a numbering. It is just the numbering.
It's a number. Okay, sir.
Number. Every number has got a title. Okay. So this is about our versification, and some exercises are available to you in page number 54. If you want to go there, you can go to page number 54 and you can make the practice. Now, if you have any doubt, you can ask me so that you can go to the next part. Any doubt?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, what is ABBC and BCCD? I'm not getting.
Okay. So you just come to, suppose for example, you come to page number 57. I will give an example. Page number 57. Did you get it?
57?
57.
Yes, sir.
You see at the top, there is a stanza having a quatrain. Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Did you get it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you see the first line is ending with a sound S. Okay.
Yes.
The second line is ending with a sound M. Dream.
Yes.
And the third line is ending with a sound again S. And the fourth line is ending with a sound steam M. So that means this is a quatrain having 4 lines, and the rhyming form is A B A B. So suppose the S sound is A, then M sound is B, then again third S sound is A, and same, and the fourth is sound is M. So it is called A B A B rhyming scheme.
Sir, what is that stress symbol?
Yes, the symbol.
Slash. There is something, no? Tell me, after that there is a slash. Long slash. Not in, after that there is a slash. What is that?
Okay, you just switch off your microphone, I'm just saying. Okay.
Yeah.
You see, in the first line, as I have told you in my beginning section, that a stroke symbol is the symbol of stressed syllable, stress, and the curve symbol is the symbol of unstressed syllable. So there is and then again there is a division. So each division means tell me. Tell me means how many vowel sounds are there? Te, one vowel sound, me, another vowel sound. Okay. So similarly, by taking 2 syllables, there is a division. So each division is a foot. So in the first line, you will find 4 feet. Tell me is a foot. Tell me is a foot. Not in is a foot. Mournful is a foot. Numbers is a foot. Because there are vowel sound like that. So you have to read the poem like, tell me not in mournful numbers. So one is loudly, another is slow, loud, slow, loud, slow, loud, slow. This is the rhythm. Okay. And SM is the rhyming. So tell me is a foot. Iambic. Why is iambic foot? Okay. it is trochee foot, because trochee foot is stress and unstress. So one is stress and other is unstress. So this entire stanza is written in the trochaic syllable. That is the example of trochaic syllable given here. Is written here. You see at the below, the stanza is in the trochaic tetrameter, because it is written, it is a quatrain. Tetra means 4. So trochaic tetrameter. So when you get a line, you will divide it into on the basis of the sound it has. Is it
Sir,
clear?
in the question also these syllables, it is a strict syllable or non? It's given in the question. The symbols like.
No.
In the question, it's not given, right?
No, you have to remember the symbol. The stroke is the stress syllable, and that one is unstressed syllable.
Sir, means every word there's a stress syllable and an unstressed syllable.
You have to divide it accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, just take one, not in this class, in any next class also, take one example or stanza and then just explain, sir. Stanza form, rhyming scheme, foot, meter, all this. If you explain one number, it will be clear for us.
Okay. So now let us see one stanza, so that it will be better for us to you see one line is there. Self check.
Sir?
Yes.
Hello? Sir. Sir, I just want to ask a question. Sir, when we got our study materials, we got very confusion from this.
What type of confusion?
Sir, means if I got the study materials, then I got confirmed. Otherwise, I got a little bit confusion from.
No, what is your confusion? You tell me. What type of confusion you are facing?
Because here, what I ever write here, the spelling also not correct. No, that's why, sir.
No. Which spelling? Can you please give me an example?
Yeah, from Ottavik Rima. Spelling Ottawa Rima. The spelling is not correct. Yeah.
It is Ottava Rima. Ottava Rima. Rima. Ottava Rima. So is there any?
Sir, those who have not got books, the PDFs are given in the mail ID. They can also download that.
You can get the hard copy of it. No problem.
Or else you can get the PDF from Telegram. You download it and you follow there.
Yes, I think they are.
It will be easy for you.
Yeah, they are not sending a hard copy these days. What I have listened, that they are not getting.
No, I have got the hard copy. All the hard copies.
Yeah, I have also received hard copies.
But those who are facing problem, they can just download it from Telegram PDF. You can open it in another mobile, then you can see there.
Yes, you can do it. You can do it. Okay.
Welcome.
Any other problem?
Sir, just one number we have to discuss, sir. Just take a stanza and just will.
Okay. Let us take a stanza then. Okay, you see in page number 55 there is a stanza. Page number 55 there is a stanza. Got it?
Yes, sir, got it.
Two truths are told, as happy as that is there. Got it? So you see, suppose it comes in your exam. Okay. Now these symbols are not there. Suppose the symbols will not be there. Now it is your turn to make the foot. How to divide it? So when you divide it, first thing that comes to your mind, that you think about iambic, unstressed followed by stressed. If not, then stressed followed by unstressed. Usually disyllabic foot are given in examination. Trisyllabic they usually don't give. Okay. So you first make up your mind that the poem that I'm getting is a disyllabic foot, I mean, stanza. So when you get this line first, two truths, how will you read it? Will you read it two truths, or will you read it two truths? So when you read the first line, two truths are told. So it is up to you to decide whether it will be two truths are told or two truths are told. Okay? So usually what happens? The articles, auxiliary verbs, they are unstressed. Articles, auxiliary verbs, they are usually unstressed. Some ideas should be there. So when you find that in the second part, R is there, it is an auxiliary verb, so it will be unstressed. So if it is unstressed, then told has to be stressed, because I have told you that spondi or paras are not used. So when one is unstressed, the adjacent will be stressed. So you get R and told. So when it is R and told, then R will be unstressed and told will be stressed. This is a very simple idea. That auxiliary verbs are unstressed, so R is unstressed, so told is unstressed. So if I divide there, then I will get the first part very easily. That two will be unstressed, truth will be stressed. So I get one, two truths are told. So when I get unstressed and stressed, accordingly now I can blindly go on dividing the entire poem one by one. So that is the general pattern. Some ideas should be there. And the second thing is that you see, there are 10 lines. If you calculate the lines, then there are 10 lines. And in the 10 lines means we don't have 10 lines stanza. Have you got 10 lines stanza? We don't have. That means there are two pentameters. And pentameters have two forms, as I have told you. One is blank verse, one is heroic couplet. And what is blank verse? Blank verse is that which are having no rhyming form.
No rhyming.
Okay. Heroic couplet is that which is having rhyming form, A, B, C, like this. So you see told, then act, then first is told, second is act, then man, then soliciting, then ill. So there is no rhyming at all. D, T, N, G, L. Then again next 5 lines, S, R, N, R, S. So this is the combination of two blank verse. Is not that?
Yes.
Sir,
yes.
Sir, in the first line, R is a auxiliary verb, so it's a unstressed syllable.
Yeah. So when R is unstressed.
Sir, in the second line, as happy prologues to the swelling act, there's two. Prologues two. Two is a stressed or unstressed syllable?
Stressed syllable, because that is a preposition.
Prepositions are all prepositions are stressed syllable?
Usually syllable. But remember that auxiliary verbs are normally not stressed. They are usually unstressed. So there are some certain, clues. From that you can decide.
Suchismita madam, just mute the microphone. Actually, sounds are coming from Suchismita Mishra.
Okay, sir.
Mute.
Okay, please mute the. Okay.
Okay.
Now
okay,
you can
sir.
ask. Okay, ask.
Now
So, sir, this is a blank verse.
Yeah, this is a blank verse, obviously.
Yes.
You see, the 10 lines are there, and if you calculate the first 5 lines, we don't have any rhyming scheme. So it is a blank verse. So another part is also a blank, because and you have to remember that most of the dramas of Shakespeare, they are written in blank verse. So this is from Macbeth, Shakespeare. You see at the below it is written there, Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Yes,
so some basic ideas. So when you discuss MEG 2, you go discuss Shakespeare, then at that time also you can get this idea, and that will help you discussing this type of question if it comes. So when you shall discuss other poems also, like Chaucer, like Donne, like Spenser and all that, by that time also you can discuss. So you will gradually get the idea, because it is the first time, so you are a little bit confused. So it will not be a problem, I think, if you go on discussing it regularly.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. This is Sharmishta here. I just have
Yeah.
two questions. May I?
Yeah.
May I, please? Yeah. The
Yeah.
first question is, what kind of questions would be coming for? Like, we have to scan the stanza and critical appreciation would be coming. Is it so?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Critical appreciation means you have to write the exact theme of the poem, because you see from where it is coming, who has written, you don't know anything. Okay. So poet's name will not be there. Only the stanza will be there. So you have to make an intuition that what type of subject matter has been treated there, and what is its versification style. So in that way you can write. So it is just an intuition that what type of subject matter is there, and the emphasis will be given on your versification. The technical part will be given more emphasis than the subject matter. If that is okay, then you will get maximum mark.
Okay, sir. My next question is like in this example that we are dealing with, we have it is written here Shakespeare Macbeth. It's been taken from Shakespeare's Macbeth, right?
Yeah.
But in the examination, no such clues will be given to
No,
us, right?
nothing will be given to.
Okay, so we have to cover the entire 10 blocks that we have, and all the poems we have to read them. Is it so? I mean, I'm just making. I'm just asking a weird question, but then it's a lot of poems. I'm so sorry. But
because don't forget that you are appearing for master degree, so you have to so you have to be very thorough on these books.
Okay, won't there be any divisions as per the age or period or poets?
Yes, there is division, because in book 1 we shall discuss Chaucer, then in book 2 we shall go to Spenser. So divisions of age are there.
Yes, sir. But in question paper, I'm asking, when we have options, is there any clear-cut division that if we skip romantic or if we are focusing on Elizabeth?
Yes. There will be division. There will be, your questions will be set accordingly, either on the particular poet, or on a particular age, or in a particular group of poets.
Oh, so sir, if it would benefit us if you could guide us in that way.
Yes, I will be discussing on that way also.
Okay.
Because our next discussion will be on that way.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome.
Audible?
Any other? Yes.
Hello, sir. I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes.
There is a question that would you agree that the Milton reflects on blindness in sonnets 19 and 23? Give a reasoned answer. Am I know that, sir? What is the blindness of sonnet?
Is it there in the text?
This question is on the assignment paper. Assignment question. This is the assignment question.
Because to attempt that, I have to go to the text, because right now in this book the text is not available with me. So if you have got the text,
we have two parts of sonnet. There is Spenserian sonnet and your Italian sonnet. So
Petrarchan sonnet and Spenserian sonnet.
But here the assignment questions have reflects that blindness in sonnets 19 and 23, which have Milton reflected.
So when you just remind me when we shall discuss Milton. Okay, sonnet 19 and sonnet
23.
23 of Milton.
Yes, sir.
Milton. So we shall have a discussion on John Milton, and during that time, please remind me. I shall discuss, because right now the text is not available with me.
Okay, sir. Okay.
How can I? We shall go to Milton. Don't worry. At that time we shall discuss. Okay. Just to remind me.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I am audible.
Yes, sir. Audible.
Sir, we have to completed all the 10 blocks, or are selected some blocks?
We should complete all 10 blocks, but our number of classes are 8. So in 8 classes, I have to touch all sections. So let us see how much it is possible to touch all the points. I shall try my level best to touch all the points. Let us see what is happening, because today one class is over, so we are left with 7 classes only. So with that, 7 classes. Yes.
Sir, my question is, I have to select all the blocks for exam, or I have selected 5 or 6 block for for exemption?
So, because if you are selecting some blocks, then it is up to you, because questions will come from all blocks. Okay. So, option will be there. So when option will be there, you prepare you give emphasis to some of the blocks which is comfortable for you, and you can.
So what about the
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So what about the assignment?
Assignment?
Yes.
So far as MEG 1 is concerned, as I know, the assignment is write a long answer by using 3000 words. By using 3000 words on a poet of your choice of any age, a poet of your choice of any age, or an age in English, in British poetry. Someone, please switch up your microphone. Okay. Okay. So your assignment question will be write. I don't know whether the pattern has been changed or not, but so far as I know, till the last time, write a long question by using 3000 words on a poet of your own choice, an age of your own choice, or a poem of any age of your own choice. So that is up to you what you will select, whether you will select a poet, whether you will select an age, or you will select a particular poem for discussion by using 3000 words. So I don't know right now what type of assignment will be given, but this was usually the traditional question since last 10 years, as I know.
Sir, assignment questions we have got now. It is already sent in Gmail ID.
Can you say what is the assignment question for this time?
Yes, I have screenshots.
Just you see, tell me what is the assignment question.
Sir, can you wait some time?
For MEG 1, yes.
MEG 1. Please read. Hello.
Sir, assignment we have to send through email, sir.
In which study center you have taken admission?
Sir, actually I am working in Kolkata, sir, and I have taken admission in Sambalpur, sir.
Acha. So you can contact
just
them.
Now I am locked down in Kolkata, sir.
Okay.
So actually it is difficult to go to Sambalpur to submit the assignment. So can we send it through email, or
you talk to the office at Sambalpur center, because they will guide you in that way, because usually what I know, hard copies are submitted. So
I have already submitted the assignment. The
online
assignment that given in the online. There's a forum and there's an email I got that to receive the assignments in online, by online.
Oh,
so
okay, very well. So this time they are receiving it online also. So you can deposit it
okay,
online.
sir. It's must have to be handwritten, and if the all questions are mandatory to answer, then you have to answer all the questions. If it's not, then you have to answer according to your choice. But you must have to answer 100 marks question that was given in the assignment section.
Yes. 100.
So my question is we submitted the assignments and I got a call from. Actually, sir, you have checked it, I guess. I got a call from British Poetry section.
Study center.
Sir, study center 2100.
2100. No, that is.
Sir, there's a confusion actually. I have allotted for 2111, which I submitted at BJP Autonomous College. The next time I got an email and an SMS also that it says that I have allotted the study center 2100. So I got a call from the sir. Actually, you or not, I didn't sure. I'm not sure actually. but my assignments are checked by some teacher. I'm not sure actually, but I have submitted it.
Yes.
And it is mentioned that I haven't written it in the correct format, but there's no classes should been taken up, so I thought I have to write what.
When did you submit it?
Sir, first I submit in actually it's from the date April 22nd or 23rd.
Shivani
Yes,
sir,
yes.
hello. Hello sir.
Yes. Yes.
Shivani sir.
Yes.
Sir, from where you got the assignment, questions of assignment?
It will
The
be
questions of
downloaded.
assignments it can be downloaded and it is in the site also, IGNOU site. And
it is
if
there in
you
the-
log into your account, then there's a section or there's a link also there. Open it.
Oh.
Sir, it is given in the email ID that you can deposit your assignments in your center, nearby center, by September.
Yeah.
Sir, and the questions are, can I say the question?
Yes.
You were asking about first question.
Yes.
First question is, explain any two of the excerpts of poems given below with the reference to their context. 4 stanzas are given.
You please take your microphone a little bit away from your mouth. It is not audible properly. Repeat it.
Explain any two of the excerpts of poems given below with reference to the context. To their context, 4 stanzas are given. Now, Sire, quote she, when we flee from the beams for goddess love, as stack some laxative, up peril of my soul, and O live, I counsel you the beast, I will not lie. Something like that is written here. And second question is, highlight the salient features of romanticism with illustrations from poems prescribed for study.
You can take the example of the poems from your study. Study
I
material.
have written that.
It is there in the study material. You can select a poem and you can write about it.
Okay.
But you remember, your study material is not enough. You have to follow some reference books also. Okay. You see, because this is only for, this is just the keeps. So for your post-graduation standard, you have to follow some reference books also.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, as I am seeing an assignment program, according to our subject, MEG, so it is nowhere mentioned that we are in the topics. It is few of the topics were mentioned like MA Economics, MA History, MA Sociology, but there is no mention of MEG. So what we are going to do right now?
What you are talking about? What?
So the assignment, about the assignment. It is nowhere mentioned in this program sheet that we have to.
No, it is mentioned. It is in the middle row. It is not visible clearly. You can see at the middle of the second row. It is there. At first, I was also not getting. Image is written in MA part.
No, image is I am absolutely not able to see it. Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
It has to be there. It has to be there.
Okay, fine. So I'm supposed to be scared about it.
No problem. Everything is there.
Sir,
excuse me.
Sir, am I audible to?
Dear participants, sir, please excuse me.
Sir, actually, there are two kinds of assignments. One is tutor mark assignment. One is given us in the question forum in the website. Sir, the one you have given, is it a tutor mark assignment? You given us before few minutes.
No. You get it from your whatever you are getting it from your site. That is final. You have to follow
Okay,
that.
sir, that is final. That's I can get that. But is it a tutor mark assignment that's given? You told us a question few minutes earlier. Write a long question using 3,000 words on the poet.
No. I was just giving you the example because this was the earlier method of writing assignment. I don't know. Any doubt? Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, audible.
Sir, please tell me how to preparation the MEG1. How to prepare for MEG1 achieve a good mark in examination.
Okay. Today we discussed the versification part, technical part. Okay. So from next class onwards, we shall discuss the poems and their ages. So when you are going to write a question and how you will prepare, then what was your subject in BA or graduation level?
My subject is
Yes.
English honors.
You had English on, no problem. You can be very comfortable with this. You see, when you prepare for any question, then first of all, you have to go to the historical background of the age. Okay. Suppose you are discussing Wordsworth. Then what was the historical background of the age in which Wordsworth is there? The second point is that the biographical aspects of Wordsworth. What is the biographical points of Wordsworth in relation to his age? Then his view of poetry and how does he write the poem and what is his subject and what is his literary aspect. In that way, you have to prepare every poem. First, age. Second, the poet's life. Third is the work. These are the three steps which will be followed for appearing any question. I think it should have been followed by you in graduation level also. Okay, welcome.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes, I'm listening.
Actually, I have taken in graduation in Sanskrit honors. So I am facing some problem in MEG. So
no problem. What
I have
problem?
not,
Because you are a student of literature. Same literature is there. Only the thing is different. So
yes,
you go through a book by any Indian writer like Ramji Lal or B. Prasad, History of English Literature. Okay, that will be ample helpful to you to know about the poets and dramatists or whatever your MEG courses are there. So you know the trend. You know the trend because you are a student of literature.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, could you please give some reference book?
Right now, you get a book of History of English Literature by any Indian writer from the market. Okay, and whatever is being taught to you, you find it in that book and you have some idea. That will be better. Go
sir, excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, actually, I have one question. Sir, unfortunately, I have deleted the message from my mail, that assignment. Sir, would you please send it again?
No, that assignment I don't have because I am dealing with only counseling classes. You can get it from your center.
Sir,
or
the
on
participants, please, anyone having the assignment, please send it through the, I think, that Telegram.
Yes. You can send it.
Yes. Write your Gmail, then I will forward to you.
Okay. I'm writing here in the message.
Sir, what if someone isn't from any literature background? Hello? Sir, what if someone is pursuing BSc in the graduation?
No problem. Nothing is impossible.
No
you see, no problem. Absolutely no problem. You understand English, that is enough. Okay. Take it easily.
Hello, my audience. Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir. Actually, we are continuing with the first year MEG program. So, could we apply for the NET examination that will go on June session?
No. After obtaining your post-graduation degree, can you apply?
Sir, is it necessary to submit all the assignments before submission of the submission for the tournament examination?
Yes.
We have to submit MEG1, MEG2, MEG3, and MEG4 before tournament examination form fill up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's why I have submitted too early that 2 assignments, but I
So
think
now we have to deposit only 4.
You have to deposit only
4 for the
only 4 first part.
Okay.
Sir, now you have given some advice to us how to write the assignments. But what about the other subjects? We didn't have any classes, so we didn't have any ideas how to write them.
Same thing. Write about the age, write about the biography, write about the work. Okay. No problem. Okay. We shall meet tomorrow again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Till then. Goodbye. Have a good.
Yes. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot. Nice class.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Welcome.